Hey friends, Jen here. Happy New Year. Cheers to 2025. I hope you all had a beautiful Christmas and holiday season with your family and friends. Welcome back to Homes That Heal and the first official show of the new year. I don't know about you, but I set some serious intentions for this year, and I have a feeling we're in for a very transformational time in history. So let's go. So to kick off the season, I decided to do something a little different today. Today is a special show with a very, very dear friend and mentor of mine, Bob Burg. Years ago, I read the book, The Go-Giver, and it honestly changed my life. It literally changed my entire mindset around how to show up in my business, in my friendships, with my family, and even in my marriage. Mark and I would go so far as to say this book helped save our marriage at a time we really needed some direction. In short, it completely overhauled my way of thinking and shifted my mindset from what can I do for myself to what can I do to help others. It moved me into grateful living and choosing to genuinely help others, and trusting the universe will support me with love and infinite abundance. I also can't even put into words how the amount of stress this shift removed from my life, and in turn helped me to create a calmer, more peaceful nervous system, which in turn ultimately helped me heal my body back to alignment. And as it relates to my business, it immediately gave me direction and inspired me to become the wellness connector. Many of you probably heard me say that. If you've read the book, you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, please do yourself a favor. It'll click once you dive in. Jump on over to jenhillerlifestyle.com and go to the books page on Jen Recommends. It's no accident. This book is in the top row for easy access. So why are we talking about books today instead of saunas or some other fun health modality? Because this is the perfect time to hit the reset button and create new routines in your life. And because this simple story paved a path for me, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to ask Bob to join me for a beautiful conversation about how living as a go-giver can elevate your mind, your body, your relationships, your business, and basically harmonize your entire life. So Bob Burg is also a genuine legend and one of the most thoughtful and sincere men I know. He's authored and co-authored numerous books on sales, people skills, and entrepreneurial success, plus his most well-known for being the business parable, The Go-Giver, co-authored with the brilliant John David Mann. The Go-Giver was ranked in the top 10 most motivational books ever written and was on HubSpot's 20 most highly rated sales books of all time. Bob is the creator of the Go-Giver Academy, online learning portal featuring the Go-Giver Success Vault, plus publishes the very popular Daily Impact emails, all of which can be accessed on his website at burg.com. Bob is an advocate and supporter and defender of the free enterprise system, believing that the amount of money one makes is directly proportional to how many people they serve. He is also an unapologetic animal fanatic, which is one of the many reasons why we're friends, and serves the South Florida Rescue, Foster, and Adoption Organization. It's a gift and a true honor to be friends with one of the greatest authors of all time. So without further ado, please welcome my friend and mentor, Bob Burg, to the show. Are you struggling with low energy, weight gain, hormonal imbalances, or heavy metal and mold toxicity? Do you want to learn more about anti-aging tips and creating more longevity in your life? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jen Heller, a wellness educator, infrared sauna expert, and home health consultant. In this podcast, Homes That Heal, I will teach you how to transform your home into a health and wellness sanctuary. Your health is your wealth, and I believe that your home should be your sanctuary space, loaded with the tools you need to thrive in your life, not just survive. If you want to feel fantastic and transform your life and home, grab a pen, let's dive in and create a home that heals. Hey friends, Jen here. Welcome back to another show of Homes That Heal. Today is a very special show. I am joined by a good friend, Bob Burg. Bob, welcome to the show.
Hello, Jen. Great to be with you.
Oh my gosh, we're going to have so much fun today. As I said a few minutes ago, I'm a little nervous. I'm interviewing the renowned Bob Burg. How fun is this?
And if you really knew better, you'd know there's nothing to be nervous about. But thank you, though. It's a nice compliment. I will receive that with gratitude.
Oh, thank you. There's so much I want to talk about today. Today's going to be a little bit of a different show than usual. Normally we talk about health modalities like saunas and cold plunge and hyperbaric chambers and ways that you can bring different modalities into your life. You don't have any of those things in your home, do you, Bob? I don't think so.
Sorry about that.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll talk about that some other day, but this is the first show for 2025. And it is very important for me to, and I've expressed this to you, Mark and I very well. We're friends outside of all the work and things we do, but your book, The Go-Giver, when we read it a few years ago, it literally changed our life. And so it was important for me, and I had this idea a few weeks ago, and so we kind of just put this together quickly, I guess, so to speak, on the schedule. It is important for me to highlight that my thought around your health and well-being, you can bring all the things into your home, you can have access to all the things, but really, I think how you go through life and how you treat other people and how you treat yourself, where you have respect, is really important for your overall health and healing. So I wanted to talk to you because you are the ultimate go-giver, as well as your life's work is teaching others how to live in gratitude and abundance. And so today, I want to talk about gratitude and abundance and how everybody can set themselves up for a life of abundance in and around living a life of congruency with those values. So walk me through. Now, you co-authored The Go-Giver with John David Mann. Walk me through, before we dig into the premise of the book, your career, your life. How did you come to this point? Or where did the book, The Go-Giver, come? I know you've got many books. So walk me through the last decades of your life, so to speak. I wasn't going to call it a number. I was going to say 40, but I don't know if that's true.
That's okay. I'm fine with that. So I began as a broadcaster, first in radio and then television. Wasn't particularly good at it. And I got a job. I like to say I graduated into sales. And the challenge was that I was not equipped to sell because I had no sales experience. And the company where I was working at the time apparently didn't either, because their sales training was go out and sell. Now, with that advice, I didn't do very well, and I floundered for the first few months until I was fortunate to find a couple of books. And I had gone into a bookstore to look for something to help, because I had no idea what to do. And this is 40 years ago, Jen. Back then, you didn't know about those kinds. I didn't know there were such things as sales books.
Right.
I didn't know there was anything to selling other than what I was told. Knock on doors, go in, blah, 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 about your product or service, and try to sell. That was it. So I got these two books. One was by Tom Hopkins. One was by Zig Ziglar, two of the legends, of course, in the sales space. So I got their books, and I like to say I never read them. I devoured them. And I would study, as soon as I got home from work, I'd study well into the early morning hours. I'd be highlighting and I'd be taking notes and practicing and everything. And really within a few weeks, my sales began to go through the roof, which was sort of fascinating to me, because it said to me that if you have a methodology, right, if you can learn the how-to, you can pretty much accomplish anything within reason. I call it having a system. And I personally define a system as the process of predictably achieving a goal based on a logical and specific set of how-to principles. The key being predictability. If it's been proven that by doing A, you can get the desired result of B, then all you need to do is A and continue to do A, and eventually you'll get the desired results of B. This was mind-blowing to me. I just didn't know anything about this. And then what I loved about the learning about sales was not just the how-to aspect, which is important, but it was really about the personal development aspect. It was about building your mind. I was not a good student in school, barely graduated. So this was my education. So I'm now reading books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and The Magic of Thinking Big and Psycho-Cybernetics and, As a Man Think, all these classics of the personal development world. And I'm starting to learn things that I had absolutely no idea about. And so this new information really helped me to see that success is an inside job. It manifests outwardly in the various ways, but it begins in here and in here. Mm-hmm. And so really that's what I did. I went on a journey of discovery in a sense. And then eventually, years later, I was sales manager of another company and then started to be asked to bring, what I was teaching into different businesses and yada, 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 as they said in Seinfeld. Here we are now, however many years later and so forth. But really, that's what happened.
Yeah. I love that you say that it's in the mind and the heart, because that's actually one of the things that people outside of the business, obviously I run a business, I run a health and wellness company, and I don't just sell saunas. There is a craft to it, and we can go down the rabbit hole of that. But really, it's having a heart in listening to people and understanding what their needs are versus just selling a product. I joke to Mark all the time. I say, like, I could sell lampshades this afternoon if I decided I wanted to get behind a lampshade and I just share it out to people. It's developing in the mindset of like, how can I help these people? And what is it that I can do to make a connection to that person so that I'm listening? And that was actually one of the things that we learned a bit deeper at the Sales Wise event earlier this year that we attend. It's like, and that's actually one of the things that I've been learning and want to take into the new year as well, is how to be a better listener, how to understand the needs of other people and not sell anything. Like, just pay attention to what's going on around you. And then also sharpening my mind in and around the need. I don't say the needs of other people, but how can I help people? How can I be of service to people?
So let me go back to something and let me take loving and respectful, what's the word I'm looking for, difference in one thing that you said. Because I love 99.9% of it.
Critique the 0.01.
Just one, just the 0.1.
Just the one.
And that is what you said about, serving and helping and listening and not selling.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that is selling. What is selling? The old English root of the word sell was selan, which literally meant to give. So when you're selling, you are giving. Now, so wait a second, but isn't that just semantics? When you're selling, what are you giving? Well, let's say you're in a sales conversation with someone, okay? And you're selling. What exactly are you giving them? I suggest you're giving them time, attention, counsel, education, empathy, and ultimately extraordinary value. Sales by definition is what? It's discovering what the other person needs, wants, or desires and helping them to get it. Right. And the only way we can ever know what they need, want, and desire is by listening, asking them the right questions, and then really listening. So to me, everything you do, and there's a reason, Jen, why you are so hugely successful. And that's because you do all these things. Now, I don't know if most of it is intuitive. It probably is, because I think that's a lot of your character and personality, but that is absolutely selling. That is selling at its finest.
Well, thank you for that. I received that compliment. I think intuitively, I talk a lot about energy work and how we're energetic beings, and being intuitive to the other person. Like, that is a piece of it. And again, we're talking about business a little bit, but also just in life, in intuitively listening to your gut. When you need something, when something doesn't feel good, know a good time to say no, thank you, versus, okay, that's something I could take on. So intuitively listening to that intuition for yourself, but also being intuitive. Like, I can almost intuitively hear what the person on the other end of the phone that's expressing to me that they, were just given maybe a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and they're calling me because they have heard that heat therapy is something that's beneficial. They're looking for ways to bring different health and wellness into their home, because now it's not a luxury. Now it's something that is a necessity in their life. I literally intuitively can hear their pain. I can hear they're scared. I can feel all those things, and they're not telling me that. And that, I think, to your point, is getting more in tune to listening and not just hearing the words, but feeling the energetic emotion around what's going on. And that can be done whether you're in person doing this on Zoom or just on the phone. And so again, like, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to chat with you, is because how we can bring this into the fold of, again, I talk to people every day that are like dealing with health issues, dealing with healing issues. How do I manage this? And I always say, well, like, let's just take the diagnosis off the table for a moment and let's look inside the home. Let's look inside the life. Like, what is going on inside your home or inside your life that maybe be causing inflammation or causing some of this stress? But also, we need to peel back those layers so that we can heal the body. If you're asking it to heal and do its innate ability to do that, we can't be living in a chaotic environment. And so kind of wrapping this all back into intuitively thinking, what is it that I need to do here that I can best support myself and my body and my health and well-being? And so how can living a life of gratitude support your health, wellness, and abundance?
Well, this gets to the very root of everything, I
Right.
believe. And interestingly, while growing up, my parents always lived with gratitude. It was always something that was modeled for me very naturally, yet I didn't really have that sense of gratitude. And I tended to see kind of the dark side of everything, the bad side of everything. And that really hurt me, and it hurt my growth to a significant degree. When I was about 34, 35 years old, I came to a decision that if I was going to have the kind of success that I felt I could possibly have, I was going to have to change some things in my life. I was inspired by a book by Benjamin Franklin, who wrote the autobiography, and is in one of the chapters, is a very famous chapter, is what he calls the 13 virtues. And basically they were character traits that he felt he had to improve upon himself back when he was a young kid. And one of them was gratitude. There were a number of others too, but without going into all of that, although I would highly suggest his book, it's filled with so much wisdom, but that chapter on the 13 virtues is spectacular. But to me, it's the best self-improvement system that's ever been invented. Of course, he was an inventor. So one of them was gratitude. And I came to recognize that was a real lack in my life. I hadn't really been aware of it, and unless we're aware, unless we're conscious of an issue, we have no chance of overcoming it, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so once I understood that, I decided to really go on a gratitude diet. And I started devoting, my life, in a sense, to gratitude, to learning gratitude, to becoming grateful, to living in gratitude instead of a sense of ingratitude. I started living in gratitude and with gratitude. And really very quickly, things started to improve for me until I made it a habit. And then it was just, wow, And it's something that I continue to read about, continue to study about. Of course, people like Kim Angeli, who great friend of ours, she specializes in gratitude, and she's just a delight. And so
there's a whole business around it. That's pretty much what she does all day. How fun is that? It's amazing.
Yeah. Christine Newell, a great friend of mine, very, very successful businesswoman. She wrote a book on it. I think The Habit of Grateful. I mean, and there's a lot of books. And then in one of my all-time favorite books that was written and published in 1910, written by Wallace D. Wattles, called The Science of Getting Rich, he devotes an entire section to the importance of gratitude. That's how important it is. Here's my feeling. To me, gratitude is the trait that makes happiness possible. And here's why. Because we can have all the blessings in the world. And I don't mean necessarily a yacht or a plane or a whatever, although if you have that and you want it, wonderful. That's all the power to you and that's great. But I'm saying that's not what we have to have. I'm talking about being in gratitude for the many everyday blessings we have. The ability to see, hear, touch, taste, smell, walk, talk, having a roof over our heads and having meals and having friends and, having technology and all the things that we just don't even think about, right? Having this amazing cup of coffee that took so much work from so many people and so much investment so that we could have a cup of coffee that costs a few dollars and tastes delicious whenever we want. I mean, there's so many things to be grateful for. But here's the thing. If we're not grateful for it, it's the same as not having it, right? Because we're not grateful for it. So there's no happiness. There's no joy. It's only when we're grateful for it that we actually, in a sense, can experience the essence of the thing.
Yes.
And when we live with or in gratitude, we start attracting, and this is what Wallace talks about, we start attracting all these other great things. No, not in a magical or mystical way. It makes a lot of sense. People are much more likely to be attracted to people who are happy. Happy people are grateful. You can't be happy without being grateful, right? So all these wonderful things. So we start attracting opportunities to us. We attract other grateful, happy, successful people to us. We begin living in that kind of world, right? And so to me, gratitude, without it, nothing else happens. With it, everything can happen.
Everything. Yes. Okay. So two things. One of the many reasons why I love you and our friendship is that you remind me that there are books from 100 years ago that I need to go back and consider reading. You're like, you always pull up like the best books and they're always from like, a century ago, but they're the classics. So they're greats. And so that's a lot of wisdom and inspiration that's timeless, right? And obviously applying that for however many decades and hundreds of years, that's consistently working. There's a lot of meat there and people need to understand that. I also love what you said about you can't fully be grateful for something unless you experience it. You can say you are, but if, we were joking before we actually hit the record button, I was saying like, oh, I'm so excited. It's got this hot cup of coffee. So it's fun that you mentioned the coffee. I'm grateful that I have a home that I can have hot coffee every day, just little things like that. And so as it relates to your health and your healing, for those that focus on, where focus goes, energy flows. And so for those that focus on whether it be the negative or finding the dark in something versus finding the light. Yeah. And so what's interesting is when you live a life like this, you can easily pick out, or you're very aware when somebody or something isn't living in gratitude or living in this life. And I can speak, Mark's not here to defend himself, of course, but I can speak freely about it because we've talked about this. When he and I met, again, no joke, you and your book completely changed our marriage. It changed our life. And we've told you that in person. We've given you hugs about that. We shared with you how much reading your book changed Mark's relationship with himself and with his mom and with his family. It's immeasurable. Like I can't even put it into words. And so that's why we are so grateful for you and you writing this book. This is why this is so important to me to have this conversation, especially to kind of kick off into a new year. I'm not one to get all hung up in the new year, new you, because I think we can live this life 365. We can do this every day. However, January feels like a new, it feels like a renew. Coming off the holidays, it's a magical time of year.
Whatever we can use, that's the power of the frame.
Right. We can frame it.
We can decide. Yeah, we can decide.
Right.
Okay, this is, and by the way, I just want to say, and I just so appreciate your kind words about the book. I just want to make sure that I credit John David Mann, my co-author, who not only was the lead writer and storyteller and made it come alive. This guy's just filled with so much wisdom and so much heart. And he was just such an amazing person to get to work with that, boy, he just really made it sing.
Yeah, you two made it. You guys pairing together, kind of making this a dynamic duo in my mind. So yes, definitely want to credit John David Mann. When we read this book, so no secret, Mark struggled with alcoholism early on in our relationship. And we were not in a very good place from a communication standpoint. And one of the things that we struggled with was that whenever we had conflict or whenever there was something, a disagreement, we would tear each other apart in and around what didn't work. We would highlight the bad, and instead of highlighting the great, being grateful for what came out of it, whether it would be an argument or a disagreement, I would get hung up on, or he would get hung up on all the things that were maybe said that triggered a person or was upsetting, instead of looking at the growth of the conversation and like where we maybe found some discovery. And so I would continuously go to him and say like, gosh, could we just find a better way to communicate? Or instead of picking apart each other or focusing on what already happened, can we find and highlight the positive in our life? Like we have so much to be grateful for. There's so much. And he struggled with that so much until he decided to put the alcohol down, just decided he had an issue and decided to let that go. I think letting that low vibe spirit, we'll call it, there's a reason why it's called spirits, I think. I think letting go of that low vibe spirit in his life. And then he picked up the Go Giver book and something clicked. Something clicked for him. And he saw life differently. And I remember he came to me because I had been living in gratitude or living a little bit differently for a long time and just trying to encourage him to see it. I don't say see it my way, but let's be
Yeah,
honest.
no, I understand.
But you know what I mean? But like, I kept asking him, like, why can't you see it like this? Like, why do you focus on the negative? Can we please focus and highlight on the good? And then one day it's like, boom, it just, an awareness, probably similar to you back when you said you're 34, 35. Something just shifted and clicked in his mind. And then we sat down and started having different conversations between us. And then we started having different conversations with friends and family members and everybody in our life. So when I say that it's changed our life, it truly has. And so why do you think, I know obviously you had mentioned John David, like where did this story come from? Like how did this come about?
Yeah. So one of the things I'd noticed when first in the business world is there were people who did things certain ways, some that were congruent with what my beliefs were. And you and I have talked many times before about our belief systems being set, when we're very young, a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, personal experiences, all these things shape the way we see and understand our world. And we have certain expectations about how the world is supposed to be, what it is. And I notice people in business doing things, sometimes really great things and really great work for others and being handsomely rewarded for it. And other times it seemed maybe they wouldn't be. And there were people who did things in ways that I thought were kind of wrong and not necessarily honest in the right way. But sometimes they were successful financially and other times they were not. And I could see kind of who was happy and who was not. And people are individuals and circumstances are individual. But if we look for it, we can spot patterns. And I think patterns are very important to keep our eye on. That gives us the general idea of those things that work and those things that didn't. And one of the things I saw, Jen, was that those people, whether it was salespeople, whether it were people in leadership and so forth, those who truly had a desire to make the lives of other people better, not in a self-sacrificial way, not in a way that hurt them, but in a way that built everybody in the process. Those were the people who seemed, again, as a pattern, seemed to have the most success in terms of financial, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, right? And that's really who I wanted to be. And again, I had great parents, so that was something I got to see modeled in front of me. Now, the big thing that happened with me that was a turnaround, I'd been in sales for a couple of years. And as you know, I started to, after my first few months of misery, I started to do really well after I had a system for doing. But after about 2 years, I went to another company and was selling a high ticket item, really good product. But I started out in a slump and couldn't seem to get out of it. As that was happening, I was putting more pressure on myself, which is, of course, the worst thing we can do. I also was focusing more on getting out of the slump and making the sale instead of caring about my it just, I don't know, whether it's human nature, whatever, just young salesperson panicking. I don't know. I make no excuses for it, but it was not working for me, certainly, and it wasn't working for the people I was trying to serve. One day I come back into the office and there's a gentleman there, older guy, was not in the sales department. In fact, he retired soon after. He's one of these guys, and we've all known people, and I didn't know him very well, but we've all known people like this who they didn't say much, but whenever they did, it was something profound.
Yeah.
And he, fortunately for me, he had noticed me and kind of saw me as that, sort of like Joe in The Go-Giver, I guess, which I'd co-authored 20 years later or 30 years after, whatever it was. He saw me as that young, up-and-coming, aggressive, good guy, great potential, but who was totally focused incorrectly. And he said to me, Burg, he was a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? So I said, yeah, absolutely. Please do. I need it. And he said, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target, he said, is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he continued, you'll get a reward, and that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose. But never forget, he said, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It's not the target itself. Your target is serving others. And what that said to me, Jen, was that basically great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is never about the product or service, as important as those are. That's never what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. Or we could even say it's about that person whose life becomes better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we can approach sales from that foundational premise, same with leadership, the same with friendship, the same with, whatever, when we can approach it from that foundational premise, we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. So that is what I started to do and, was able to really build a sustainably great sales business. Now, I wrote my first book in the mid-90s. It was called Endless Referrals, Network Your Everyday Contacts into Sales. And it was a how-to book on how entrepreneurs and salespeople who knew they had a great product or service, they knew it brought lots of value to others, but they didn't necessarily feel comfortable or confident going out into their local communities and building the kinds of relationships with people where people would want to do business with them directly and or refer them to others. So Endless Referrals was the system. It was the how to build those relationships. The premise was that, and you've heard me say this has kind of been my calling card for 40 years, and that is all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. Okay, so it was a how-to book, and it fortunately did well, but I'd always thought, wouldn't it be great if we could take this basic premise and make it into a parable? Because I'd always loved reading business parables since I'd been in sales. Parables are what? They're stories. And stories connect. Right. Yeah. They connect on a heart-to-heart level, right? But I'm not, I can tell a story from stage, but that's a lot different from writing a story. That's not my strength zone. I'm a how-to writer. But fortunately, I met John David Mann when I was a contributing writer to a magazine that he was the editor-in-chief. And John, even back then, had this wonderful reputation within his niche. The world hadn't known about him yet, but boy, did the people who knew him just loved him, and everybody just loved John. And he was the editor, and he just always did such a wonderful job. He was so humble and kind, which editors don't have to be, but he was. And so I thought about this basic idea of this story, this go-giver story. And I just asked him if he would consider being the lead writer and storyteller. Because I knew, by the way, he was also a great entrepreneur in his day. Yeah. So, I mean, this guy had it all. And he was the only one I wanted to do this with. I didn't ask anyone else. I didn't want to ask anyone else. But, John was busy back then. But he said to his back then fiance, now his lovely wife, Anna, he said, I'm really too busy to do this. But, it's Bob. I mean, how can I not at least, because we built a relationship, right? We built a friendship, the know, like, and trust. So he and Anna were visiting her mom back on the west coast of Florida. They took a 4-hour drive to Jupiter, where I live, Jupiter, Florida. We had about a 3-hour dinner and discussed the idea of the book, what it would be about, and so forth. About 3 weeks later, he called me and said, I think we got something here. Let's do this. Oh. So, with John's great writing, it didn't take long to put together. The tough part was finding a publisher, because through our agent, we have a great agent, but it took us a year. We went through, I think, 24 rejections to with the 25th one over the course of a year, until the 25th one, Portfolio, Penguin Random House, said, yeah. And they've been a great publishing partner, just the best. So it worked out exactly as it was supposed to. So
you were told no 24 times?
Yeah. Yeah. And what John and I did, and we really made this decision, and Margaret and Faye and Donna at the time, the agents, what was great that they did was they always asked for feedback from the publishers why they said no. And John and I kind of made the decision, let's listen to this feedback. Let's put our egos aside. Let's put our hurt feelings aside, right? And really see what we can learn from it and what we can do. Now, some of them were we're not interested in the parable. Some were, the world doesn't need another parable. Some were, we don't like the story. Some were, was, well, this and that. And, we get some good advice, though. There'd be some things that helped us reshape the story. But then the best one turned out to be their platform isn't big enough. Now, when a publisher these days says platform, what they mean is how many people already know you and are going to buy the book just because it's you. That's basically what a platform means for you. Well, here's the thing. John and I both had a huge platform even back then. So we knew that wasn't the issue. However, obviously we didn't communicate correctly that we had the platform, right? And that's on us.
Yeah.
So, we got back together and invested in putting together a really great demo video with all the, whatever that needed to communicate correctly the platform that we had.
Oh my gosh. What a story. I don't think I knew that you were told no 24 times. That's interesting. And also just a testament to keep going. When you know you have something, be open to constructive criticism, tweak and do things. I love the parable story. I think one of the many reasons why I love it is because it allowed me to apply nuggets and pieces of the story to my own life versus, we all have how-to books. We all have different ways that we can read systems and have stuff. This book caught my attention because, again, I work in the wellness world and I work in health, and my wheelhouse is infrared saunas, light energy, heat therapy, detoxification. I can go a lot of different ways. But at the end of the day, what I realized about 10 years ago, shortly, I would say a couple years into after I opened up my brick and mortar wellness center, a lot of people coming at me asking questions about things that I didn't know, that I wanted to help with, but I didn't know. I'm not an expert in women's hormones. I'm not an expert in gut health. I'm not an expert in all these things. But I had this need and urgency or this heartfelt feeling of like, I want to help you. Let me help you let me find somebody for you. Let me help you. Let me help you. So the connector in the story, I remember when I was reading it for the first time, I read it probably 10 times now, but I was on a plane. I can't remember where I was going at the time, but I was like, I want to be a wellness connector. Like, I don't have to be all knowing for everybody, but I can help people. I can make connections.
Right.
And that comes back to the go-giving piece of like, some people are like, well, what's in it for me? I don't need anything from it. I just know that I'm making connections to people. Like, we're here to shine a bright light. Like I say in my vision each morning, I'm a catalyst and bright light, and I help connect people. And so for me, the storytelling of it, the parable of it was helpful for me to understand I don't need to know how to do everything. It's the who, not how, which is another fabulous book.
Great book.
I was going to say that's one of my favorites as well. That was another aha book for me. It's like, okay, we don't need to know how to do everything, but having who's in our life and being able to help people navigate their life, like that spoke to me. And so again, another reason why I wanted to chat with you today and just really paint this picture of like, whether it be in business, in your life, in your relationships, however you want to apply living a go-giving life or living in gratitude, it's helping other people by bringing value to their life. And so becoming the wellness connector, it inspired me to create the free resource guide that Jen recommends on my website for people, which is just loaded with information and different ways that people can enhance their life in their home. And it's not full of a bunch of affiliate codes and like all these different, it's just information. It's just helping people on their path of wellness. And so the book just like aha a moment for me to live more in gratitude towards other people. And that's a way that I can be in service to people as well. So,
well, it's everything you do, Jen. And I've gotten to see kind of close up how you do your business, which has been great. And everything you do is congruent with your value system. And that's really the key. And that's why when we say, well, what is happiness, right? In the dictionary, happiness is defined as the mental feeling of well-being. Okay. And I like that. It's a good definition. It works. We all want that mental feeling of well-being, happiness. But I look at happiness a little bit deeper, and that I say that happiness is an ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values. So happiness is a genuine and ongoing feeling of joy and peace of mind, the result of living congruently with one's values. That's not to say that every moment is rainbows and sherbet and, everything else. Of course not. Life is life, and yucky things happen. But when we are acting congruently with our values, we have a good feeling about ourselves. We feel good about ourselves. It's very difficult, I'd say near impossible, to be happy if you're living incongruently with those things you truly value. And I don't mean what other people say you should value or what the general society says you should value or even what you think you should. I mean what you really, truly value. And, as I watch you and I watch somebody who's so very successful, I think of one of my friends, his name is Mark. He says, people say, well, success leaves clues, but actually success leaves billboards. And you leave a lot of billboards because you can really watch what you do and how much you truly care about bringing such immense value to those you serve that the success, and this is where John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. And when your focus is on the value that you are providing others, well, people feel good about you. They feel great about you. You want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to do business with you. They want to be part of your world. They want to tell the world about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador, as our friend Richard Wildman says, a delighted advocate for you and for your business.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I receive all those kind words. And I do feel that no one's ever said I'm leaving billboards around. That's kind of a new, fun, and interesting thought process for me to think through. But going back to what you said in the beginning, early on, about people attract, we're energetic beings, and we attract other people who are living this way and have this type of energy and this frequency. And so I think, was it yesterday or was it 2 days ago we were on a call, but we were talking about living in flow and living in alignment and what that feels like when we're making decisions, whether it be for our personal or for our business, and we feel good. We feel joyful. Like, it's hard to even articulate. And so that's how I move about my life. That's how I move about my business. And I've learned a lot of that from being in and around you and Kim and Jeff and the Sales Wise group. I want to share a little bit about how people can find and work with you. You've got a number of other books that people can pick up of yours as well. But I just want to, again, extend a sincere amount of gratitude to you, to John David Mann, for you guys creating this book. For anybody who's not picked it up and read it or listened to it, please do so. It's my one request for everybody for 2025 is to at least consider reading it or listening to how they can apply more gratitude to their life, and to kind of peel back to how it applies to the health and wellness that I teach. You can't ask the body to heal. You can't ask the body to align. You can't ask the body and the heart and the mind to do something if it doesn't feel good and if it isn't harmonious and if it isn't in a more positive high vibe frequency. The more we elevate our lives, the more we elevate our frequency, the more our body, our physical body, is going to respond and enjoy in alignment. So where can people find you, work with you, listen and follow you? I know you guys have an event coming up in a few weeks. You want to share a little bit about all the different ways that people can connect with you?
Sure. Well, to connect with me, the easiest way is just to go to Burg, and that's BURG.com. So nice and easy, right?
That is easy.
Yeah. And while they're there, they can, if they'd like, subscribe to my daily impact email, as well as find out about our Go Giver Success Vault and so forth. And then, as you said, Jeff and Kim and I are holding an event. The next one is an online event, and that's the Sales Wise Live Sales Mastery program. And that's going to be 3 half days in late January. And to find that, it's just saleswiselive.com.
Yeah.
So SalesWiselive.com.
Yeah. And Mark and I have attended a couple of those in-person events, and absolutely, again, just tons of information for those that want to lead their businesses and lead their professional lives in a more go-giving way, but also just being in and around like-minded people who want to live this life with gratitude. That to me is just, that's the icing on the cake for sure. And so thank you for introducing all of this to us and writing this book and changing our lives. Anything that you want to, any piece of advice, any Bob Burg wisdom you want to leave the listeners with today going into the new year?
Well, I don't know if it's so much any particular Bob Burg wisdom other than just keep going at it. Life is there to be lived, and to the degree we can put our focus on making other people's lives better, That's the degree that it happens for us. And it's not a matter of, some people say, well, do it without expectation. I think it's better to say, do it without attachment. And that way, because I want everybody to expect really great things.
Yes.
So that doesn't mean it's going to always that you expect it's always going to be from that person. But no, it's going through life. And that's that gratitude. Gratitude can be lived in advance of the thing happening. And so we give with gratitude, right? But we give without attachment to anything having to happen. In other words, we are totally unattached to any specific results. And of course, one of my other, most favorite books in the world, I think you may have heard me mention maybe once or twice, is Michael Singer's Living Untethered. And I
knew you were going to say that.
He goes so deep into how to actually ensure that happens. So maybe my piece of advice would be buy Michael Singer's book, Living. And that's the third book in his series. So he wrote The Untethered Soul. He wrote The Surrender Experiment, both wonderful books. But I think his third one is his masterpiece. And you don't have to have read the other two. I'd go right to Living Untethered. Make that a study book. Fun read, too. It's a great read. But make that a study book in 2025.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being thank you for everything that you brought to mine and Mark's life, for sure. Thank you for enlightening my community, my listeners, to kick off the new year. You are fantastic. We'll have all the places that people can find to connect with you in the show notes. So cheers to a new year, Bob. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate you most greatly.
Okay, friends, thanks again so much for tuning in and kicking off the start of this glorious new year. I'm so grateful we're connected and cannot wait for the next season of shows. It's totally jam-packed. If you love today's show, please share it with your friends and family. Plus, feel free to hop on over to Apple and Spotify to rate and review. If you're wondering how you can get your hands on the Go Giver into your cart pronto, hop on over to my site and click on the Jen Recommends Books page. It's right on the top row and immediately checks you out at the Jen Heller Amazon storefront. This book also makes an amazing gift for anyone looking to elevate their life and business. I send dozens of these books out in the mail as a surprise every year. Many of you listening have probably received one of my gifts. Okay, friends, that's a wrap for today. Thanks again for tuning in, and I look forward to chatting with you next week. Cheers to your health and happiness. Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. This helps me expand my reach to other health and wellness enthusiasts. If you're interested in purchasing a Clear Light sauna, have a topic request, or just want to connect with me, please head over to my site, jenhellerlifestyle.com.